Hey guys, gonna break down another Disney movie for you all, look for some mental health themes, and see if we can find some stuff that's actually applicable to what you and I and most everyone else can experience and relate to. Let's take a look. Our main point of interest for this movie will be Hiro. He is the 14-year-old protagonist on the left in Big Hero 6. And we're going to really focus on his journey throughout the movie and some of the things that he goes through mental health wise. There will be some other characters along the way, but we're mostly going to focus on Hiro for now. At the start of the movie, we find Hiro engaging in bot fights and then placing bets on those bot fights, which I guess is illegal in the movie. And his older brother Tadashi tries to bail him out, but then they get picked up by the police, and then their Aunt Cass has to come pick him up and bring him home. And as an older brother probably would do, try and explore what their younger brother's thinking, what are the consequences, yada yada, and not much happens here. Tadashi asks the question, what would mom and dad say? And Hiro responds, well, I don't know, they're dead. His parents died when he was about 3. A common misconception here is that despite Hiro's age at the time when his parents passed away, that's still considered a traumatic event and something you definitely want to keep an eye on. Especially at that age, children aren't going to be able to express their thoughts and feelings in response to trauma the way adults will. We also don't know what kind of experiences Hiro had between 3 and now. And that just kind of makes this awkward pause, and Tadashi says that he'll take his brother out to go to another bot fight across the city. Now, I want to comment on this decision. So, Tadashi may not agree with Hiro's decision to engage in bot fighting and betting on it, but he wants to minimize the risk as much as possible to Hiro, so he's going to go along for the ride this time, instead of Hiro not having anyone to defend him when getting beat up by other competitors or potentially have the cops involved. At least he has someone there that can back him up. And he also has some potential plans along the way to this bot fight. Tadashi is able to persuade his brother Hiro by offering him a ride to save him the inconvenience of getting there on time. But along the way, he's going to expose his younger brother to his environment. He goes to school, he works on projects and inventions, and we're thinking, okay, maybe if we show him something a little different, maybe we can influence his perspective. Let's see how it goes. We finally get to meet Baymax. We're definitely going to talk a lot about Baymax as the movie goes on, and at the moment, Hiro's at least intrigued. But there's also a time crunch, so we want to make sure that we get him on to the bot fight on time, so they get ready to go, and then we meet Professor Callahan. When it comes to young people and their mental health, there's usually 2 things that come up in the conversation. 1, their perception of their neighborhood and their community, and 2, having at least one positive role model in their life. You can make a case for Tadashi, definitely, but it's Professor Callahan that carries a little bit more weight right now, because Professor Callahan is the guy that created the bots. And he even showed interest in Hiro's bot, and they start having a conversation, and sure enough, because of that interaction, there's going to be behavior change in Hiro, and he now's like, why am I not in school? I gotta go to school. How do I get into school? One way to consider working with young people is taking a look at the risk factors, things that make their life and their environment very challenging and difficult right now. And then you would create a plan to minimize the impact those risk factors have on the individual, and then increase protective factors, things that would support the client's well-being in dealing and addressing the risk factors. You can't make the risk factors go away, but you can find things to help support against those things. The key word here is impact. Right now, the connection with Professor Callahan created a behavior change for Hiro. That is impactful for him right now. Okay, we're motivated, we're ready to go, and then we get stuck. But our brother won't let us stay stuck forever. This comes up so much in the movie. Find a different angle And we can do that a lot for just problems in general. Just look at it differently. It doesn't always have to be a positive, happy spin on it, but sometimes changing our perception or belief of the situation can help us work through the barriers of life. Tadashi's unconditional love for Hiro doesn't stop there. We get to the showcase, we're ready to present our idea, and we get stage fright. What does our brother remind us to do that we can all do a little bit better of? Breathe. Breathing controls our heart rate and better boosts our emotional regulation. And sometimes we just need to intentionally fixate on that thing so we can get through the thing we need to do. Hiro's presentation goes well. Professor Callahan wants to invite him to the university. Alistair Cray wants to give him a bunch of money. I will comment on these guys' relationship later, but for right now, Hiro makes the decision to accept the offer to go to university. He's very happy. They celebrate, and then him and his brother have a nice little one-on-one, and the bond between brother and brother is as strong as ever. Unfortunately, the movie takes a very drastic hard left where the showcase facility catches fire, and apparently Professor Callahan's still inside, and Tadashi makes a decision to try and go rescue him. Unfortunately, he doesn't make it. And we're going to take a look at how Hiro responds. This is grief. These are classic symptoms of grief because all of this changes in his mood, his affect, his appetite, his loss of interest. This is all in a direct response to losing his brother. Now, you can definitely make an argument that Hiro was exhibiting symptoms of depression prior to that because he had unresolved issues with his parents passing away, but right now the symptoms are directly connected to his brother passing away. Hiro is going to fluctuate through these different symptoms and stages of grief. These are normal experiences for just about anyone experiencing loss, and we'll try to identify which ones he goes through throughout the movie. Baymax joins us again, and this particular part of the movie is very intriguing for two reasons. We're going to pause here. So Baymax is programmed with over 10,000 medical procedures, and right now he's scanning for symptoms. And one of those symptoms is a G protein connected to puberty, which is what he diagnoses Hiro's symptoms with. He also mentioned mood swings, which is also consistent with bipolar disorder. That's one thing that's interesting. Here's the second thing. Something as simple as mood swings can go across many different medical and mental health symptoms. That's why it's important to seek out the appropriate providers that are trained and competent in those symptoms. Baymax is only trained medically, not mental health symptoms related, which is why we get to the conclusion of puberty. But we learned that's not really the case. Not super relevant to Hiro's symptoms, but just a friendly shout out and reminder that, hey, you need to take care of yourself, do things that refill your cup and recharge your batteries so you can be the best version of yourself. And whatever that looks like, just go do it. That way you can come back and be awesome. Like right now, Baymax is recharging their batteries. So once Baymax is all charged up, Baymax mentions Tadashi, and that will trigger Hiro's symptoms and remind him, hey, Tadashi's not here. But that further prompts Baymax to, hey, you're my patient. I want to help you. How can I help? And Hiro tells him, like, you can't fix this one. But that triggers the idea, like, hey, this isn't medical. I need to learn and better understand this. So he goes and downloads stuff about grief and loss. Any good clinician or therapist will make themselves as competent as possible about what you got going on if they don't fully understand it already. But you can also help them along by sharing stuff like that. It's really important that Hiro is spending time with people right now. Now I get people that are going through grief or some other symptoms of depression. It may be hard for them to want to engage, but sometimes being alone and being isolated, we're our worst enemy. So it's really awesome to see Hiro spending time with people right now. Besides flying, Baymax is able to gauge neurotransmitter levels and it's clear that Hiro's mood is elevated, and that's what we want. However, we're not quite there yet with Hiro's recovery because there are still some unresolved issues with the person that is responsible for Tadashi's death, and we haven't made peace with that yet. I said I would come back to these two's relationship, that's Professor Callahan and Alistair Cray, and it's for this reason it's important to address your unresolved issues. Professor Callahan has been living with stuff for years. At this point in the movie, we don't know what it is yet, but it goes to the point where it leads to this conflict. Trigger simply means an internal or an external thing or stimuli that generates an uncomfortable response for yourself, whether that's symptoms of anxiety, depression, anger, psychosis, etc. The movie takes another very dark turn when Hiro is trying to talk about how Tadashi went in there to save you, and then Professor Callahan responds, that was his decision, and we lost Hiro. If Baymax doesn't miss on the several attempts at Professor Callahan's life, Hiro would be a 14-year-old that just took someone's life. Let that sink in for a moment, how scary that is and how much pain Hiro is in right now. I tell this to all my clients, and Hiro is exhibiting that right now. His friends got hurt in the process. He almost took Professor Callahan's life. Hiro hasn't healed from his brother's passing. I mean, I totally get it. But right now, there's no consequential thinking. There's no emotional regulation. We never got to that place yet. And right now, that's leading to some very poor choices that could impact Hiro's life drastically. So Hiro ditches his friends. Professor Callahan gets away. They need to fix Baymax's scanner to find him again. And this part is crucial. Baymax asks two very important questions that gets Hiro to at least slow down a little bit and think. Another fun phrase I like to use is, when we reach our lowest point, we are open to the greatest change. And right now, Hiro's low. But Baymax, being Baymax and having all this technology, is able to show recordings of Tadashi when he was working on the Baymax project. And sure enough, this was the trick to get Hiro to kind of just like have some closure on the fact that his brother isn't here right now, but you can still grieve in a different way. It is at this point we better understand the conflict between Professor Callahan and Alistair Cray. Professor Callahan lost his daughter working for Cray in a project years ago, and he has not healed from that and holds Cray responsible for the loss of his daughter. So, two examples of people going through grief and loss and being handled in different ways. Professor Callahan's got years on Hiro right now. Again, unresolved issues is a theme here. Another theme was finding a different angle during the fight between Professor Callahan and everyone. Everyone kind of gets stuck in a situation, but they're able to pause for a moment and contemplate solutions, and eventually they all get out of the situation that they're stuck in. Sometimes it just takes looking at the problem differently to solve it. Once the fighting stops, Baymax's scanner detects a human life form in the time vortex thingy. So what do? They go in there to go rescue that person, and sure enough, it's Professor Callahan's daughter from years ago. But unfortunately, on their way out, they get stuck. They're in a situation, and the only possible solution is for Baymax to propel Professor Callahan's daughter and Hiro through the vortex, and Baymax has to sacrifice himself and stay behind. Hiro again has to experience symptoms of loss and grief for the third time in his 14-year-old life. But this time's different. This time, he gets to say goodbye and is accepting of that. Last thing before I wrap this up, take a look at Hiro's affect and overall mood from when he lost his brother to after losing Baymax. Just very subtle differences that Hiro is more accepting and better managing the symptoms of grief right now than he was earlier. I said I would revisit this again. Hiro now has at least 3 significant family members lost, and we'll count Baymax to a certain degree. And you can definitely make a case for some underlying depression over the years from parent loss, brother loss, etc. Again, risk factors just add to the difficulty of life. That doesn't mean it absolutely means life will be difficult. Hiro pretty much adopts Tadashi's friend group and makes it his own. I don't know what his friend group was like before that. Looked like he was pretty isolated. And he still has Aunt Cass. You can consider that parent connectedness, and now he's going back to school with his friends. And through all this, resilience is huge right now. Always, always, always promotes someone's resilience and able to deal with the unfairness and challenges of life. Period. If I was Hiro's therapist, I would say he's made some significant strides by the end of the movie, but I wouldn't say he's out of the woods yet. To further prevent relapse, I would definitely recommend him for some one-on-one counseling. I think he'd be a great candidate for acceptance and commitment therapy to better keep him focused on what he wants to do with his life right now, what's important to him, committing to those values and that focus, and most importantly, continuing to accept the difficult thoughts and feelings he's experienced from grief. Thanks for watching, guys. If you made it this far, wonderful. If not, that's okay too. Hope you got something out of this. This is my take on Hiro, the protagonist in Big Hero 6, Disney Pixar movie. Y'all have a good one. Take care.